and there was an explosion, and there was smoke everywhere. I was on the floor, and then I was like, it's my job to get whoever this is out. I sat up and went to move. It was then I realised it was me that had been caught in the explosion. And then I remember waking up inside Camp Bastion, inside an ambulance with a light above my head. My initial thought when I woke up was, I've died. Like that's the light that they talk about. And I remember that night, the whole night, I believe I spent most of the night just crying because I knew that was it. Then the leg was going to go, and in my head, life was over, you know. And the thought of, wow, I'm in the World Championships 3 years ago. And it turned out that the World Championships happened on the 15th of June, which was the same date that I was sat in my car 3 years before, ready to take the tablets.
Welcome back to the Toughest Finish Line podcast with me, Jen Doan, the podcast that shares the stories of people who have faced life's hardest challenges, but found their way to extraordinary finish lines because of them. Before we dive into today's episode, a quick reminder that we'll be at the World Triathlon Expo on March 28th and 29th, 2026. If you're heading down, come and join us. We cannot wait to meet you in person, hear your stories, and bring the Toughest Finish Line community together. Now, today's episode is a powerful one. We're sharing the story of a man who served in the British military, dedicating his life to something bigger than himself. But his journey took a devastating turn when he was seriously injured and had to return home to the UK. In a moment, everything changed: identity, purpose, and direction. But this isn't a story about what was lost. It's about what was rebuilt. From the depths of trauma, he found strength again, not just physically, but mentally. He's now a force in the world of HYROX, proving that limitations are often rewritten in the mind long before they are in the body. And beyond competition, he's channeling his experience into something even bigger. He's championing men's mental health, creating space for conversations that too often go unspoken. This conversation about resilience and finding purpose after pain, and about discovering that sometimes the toughest finish line isn't on the race course, it's the one inside your head. Let's get into it. So a huge welcome to somebody who, when I first started speaking to him, I was incredibly inspired, the amazing Ricky Banner. Ricky, thank you so much for being here today.
No
How are you
worries.
doing?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, feeling good. Thank you.
Brilliant. So I found your story online and very quickly wanted to find out more because you do a lot about supporting men's mental health. And you're also a bit of a HYROX king as well, an absolute machine in the HYROX world, which we will talk about in a lot more detail. But we had an initial chat about the podcast, and I was just even more inspired by your story, and I know it will inspire so many people. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And I think you've been through a lot of trauma and a lot of really, really tough situations. So shall we just go back to the beginning and where things sort of started for you? As it starts with you joining the army, doesn't it? So what was it about the military that got you to sign up, and what was your role within the army?
It's a bit of a funny start, if I'm honest. I wasn't the best of children at school. I played up a little bit, and then I got to a certain age where I started to mature a little bit, and I was going, what am I going to do? And a friend of mine was joining the army, and he just kept getting days off, and I'd truanted quite a bit over my school life, and I could see him having days off, and I thought, right, I can have a day off here by pretending to join the army. So my initial part was totally, let's go up there, let's pretend to join the army. It gets me a few days off, and now I'll never join, kind of thing. And then I got up there, started speaking to people, and I ended up joining after I'd left school. Basically, I think I had a bit of a rubbish attitude. I went into my exams like they didn't care. I was now going to join the army and all this kind of stuff. So I left school with very little. So the army was there and it was ready, and I was like, this let's go and see what it's like, and then went down to Purbright at the age of 16,
Wow.
where it's actually not far from where I live now, to be fair. I've ended up settling down this way. But yeah, I had quite a good career in the army in the end, and I absolutely loved it. I loved the being around the lads. I loved the lifestyle. I loved it all, to be fair. And the army's not for everyone, but yeah, I ended up absolutely loving it. I loved the fitness side of it. I loved the we were part of the guard, so I was standing outside the palace one day, and
Wow.
I'm standing there going, "Wow, we're guarding the Queen," and I'm I'm fighting in a foreign land, and and all of these kind of things. So it's a lot was happening where for me it was like I loved doing what I was doing. Uh, so yeah, I went on a tour of Northern Ireland. Back in, I believe, no, I'll tell a lie. I went to Iraq first in 2001, I think. My memory's
Right.
not great. It's been so long. And then we come back from Iraq, and then I went out to Northern Ireland quite quickly after, and then did several exercises and moving around the world. I've been based in Germany,
Right.
back in the UK, in the middle of London, next door to the palace, and all that kind of stuff. And then we got told. I think it was in 2008, 2009 that in 2010 we'd be going out to Afghanistan. And you start training them for a year, So obviously you're going over there, uh, and that was a completely different ball game. I remember the conversations that was had before, the thought
Mhm.
process that was going into it, the fear of leaving home, all of that kind of stuff was a completely different ball game to what I'd already experienced, really, in my military career. And
Yeah.
I remember one stat always standing out. And the only reason I remember it is because me and two other lads just used to also always have a bit of banter, as the military do, sometimes quite inappropriate and a little bit too dark. So the stat was 1 in 3 of you is potentially not going to come home or come home injured. Uh,
Wow.
which is mad to think that I'm going
Mm.
over there with a platoon of around 28. So I'm sitting there thinking, and then the two lads that was the same rank as me at the time, they were like, "Well, I hope it's going to be you, and you're going to lose this, you're going to lose that," and then I'm saying the kind of the same back. But actually, that was quite comforting, going that we was just having that little bit of a laugh. Uh,
Yeah.
and I remember saying at the time, like, if any of us do get injured, try and carry on this banter because I think it'll help afterwards.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I ended up going out a little bit early, to be fair. I left about 3, 4 weeks before everybody else because I was going over there to take over from the people we were taking over from, go around with
Mhm.
them, learn the area, uh, and then bring our lads in. And then there was a few of us that had been there that had been around and seen things, so we could then brief everybody else, basically.
Right.
So yeah,
Wow.
it was a it was a difficult time. It was a experience that I'll always remember for positive reasons, for negative reasons, and so on. Uh, but the fear was real there.
Mm.
On a daily basis, you're going out and you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, and we were coming under contact most days. So on average, we're probably going out on patrol at least once a day, up to 3, 4 times a day, dependent on patrols, dependent on what's happened, and so on. So yeah, it was quite daunting in the fact that you don't know where you're standing even.
Yeah.
So you're treading on a place that could end up causing an explosion because a lot of it was IEDs being
Mhm.
buried in the floor. Been there a while, been there since 10, 15 years before, so there's no
Yeah.
clear sign on the ground that obviously if anything's been planted relatively soon before we'd been out, we got to know the ground and we could tell the difference, and then we'd call people in to come and deal with it and so on. But
Mm.
yeah, I think it was the 10th or 11th of December 2010. We went out on a patrol nice and early in the morning. Uh, I'd been promoted the day before, so I've gone from the front section commander, who basically is the person that has all the, what we'd say is the excitement at the front, but that's the adrenaline taking over. It's not
Yeah.
really excitement. You're being
No.
shot at, it's not necessarily exciting, but the adrenaline takes over, so that you get that buzz. So I was
Mhm.
the lad at the front that was running that front section that basically got all of that. Uh, and then when I get promoted, I'm the platoon sergeant that then goes to the back. So I
Right.
was then at the back. And basically I got promoted that day. The lad who was platoon sergeant at the time had just left. He had just gone to Bastion that night to then fly back a day or two later. Uh, so I sat the group of lads down, and our platoon hadn't had any casualties at this point. We'd had nothing. So it was
Right.
about 3 or 4 months into the tour. And I've sat down and I've had this inspirational talk, and I'm just going, why can't we be that platoon that goes away with no injuries? Why can't we be that platoon that does all this and does all that, and all the lads, like, really, like, as far as I've been told, enjoyed it. It was a good inspirational chat. He got them up for the rest of the tour, because obviously there were some low moments, and we could hear about other friends across other platoons and our company or
Yeah.
battalion that had been injured. And so it was trying to pick the lads back up, really. That was the intent. And then the following morning, we went out on an op nice and early. And we tend to not be too concerned that time in the morning, because not much happened until after about 9 o'clock. So I don't know whether uh, they had late mornings or lie-ins or whatever, but they never tended to bother us before then.
Right.
So we went out in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and went out on an op. And as I say, I was then moved to the back. So I was getting bored at this stage, and I was just sat there while they were looking around and searching around, because we was basically going to put an observational post in a little bit further out from where we were, to try and control a bit of ground, to allow the civilians around us to farm and to go about their life without being
Mm.
hassled. And yeah, so we went out, and I kept getting on the radio, boss, I'm going to come and have a look at the OP. And he's like, no, you're not. Stay there. You're at the back now. You need to stay there, so on. And we did that back and forth about 5 times. And in the end, he was like, right, you're doing my head in. If you need to come up here, come and get eyes on, and then go back. So I'd planned to, because I was going into the observation post with a group of lads, I'd planned to go and get eyes on what it looks like, and then I could go to the back, and then I could plot where I'm going to put all the defences and so on. So
Mhm.
it wasn't. there was a there was a
There was a
method to my
reason.
madness,
Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, so I climbed down there, and the lads had been walking. So they were over in this alleyway, and we were like in this open, what you'd see in England as like an open farm field that had just recently been harvested, for instance.
Right.
So just a muddy field. We were just sat in there, and they were over there walking up and down for about 45 minutes. So eventually I got my wish and climbed up over the ladder, jumped over the wall. And as I was just getting down off the wall, the platoon commander said, can you grab, I can't even remember who it was, but if you're coming over, grab him as well, because then we can. So I popped my head back over the wall, jumped up, uh, shouted the lad and says, you need to come over as well. Dropped down onto the floor, took one step backwards, and there was an explosion, and there was smoke everywhere. I was on the floor, and then I was like, right, it's my job now. I was as a platoon sergeant, you're in charge of the casualties and all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. So I was like, it's my job to get whoever this is out, like, and I feel all right. So I sat up and went to move. It was then I realised it was me that had been caught in the explosion. I was incredibly lucky because it only partly detonated, so I had the impact but no explosion. So
Wow.
the impact was the big FUD and all the smoke that went around me, and obviously put me on my backside. But there was no real massive explosion, which is what then tears limbs off and so on. So I looked
Right.
down and my leg's still there. What had happened though is my feet were like that, and my foot was basically twisted off to the left. So it was then I realised that I'd obviously damaged it quite bad.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
and then asked one of the lads that came to see me. So the section commander that had then took over my role at the front had come running to me to basically give first aid. And I says, I think my foot's off inside my trousers. And it was only when he grabbed my foot and started moving it. So I was like, no, it's still on, it's still on. Like, and then I was in obviously a whole lot of pain. Uh,
Oh my goodness.
and then, yeah, we was there for, I think, incredibly quick. They got me on a stretcher back over the wall, and then somebody took over, calling in the helicopter to come and get me, and so on. And it was incredibly quick. And at the time, we'd got there's a great little story of whenever we're going over there, and when you're issuing morphine, if they've got a heart rate which is too high, you can't issue it. So you pretend in training, you pretend and you tell them you have, so they can calm themselves down, so they feel like they've got it. So
Right.
I had an 18-year-old medic, and she came up to me and she was just like, and she hit me on the leg, and I went, I didn't feel that morphine. You didn't give me morphine. I need morphine. And she's going, I gave you morphine. I promise. I gave you morphine. And she was like, listen, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to give you another one. And again, pretended. At that stage, I was like, okay, maybe I'm not feeling it because my leg, and she has actually given me the morphine. So then my heart rate relaxed a little bit, and then she went, right, I'm going to give you some morphine, and went whack, and I was like, ah, started screaming because that's a real thick needle. So that's quite painful in itself. And then, yeah, I got helicoptered out of there and then back to Camp Bastion, and
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, there's so much going on there, and
Mm,
it's incredible how you talk about how eager you are to get out there, and the adrenaline's going, and all of
mm.
that. And I guess the adrenaline was there when it first happened. Your instinct is, I need to get up and help the others because you don't
Yeah.
think you're injured, but I mean, once you're sat in that helicopter and you were getting some treatment, what do you remember what was going through your mind at that point?
So basically, what they do, I believe, and what I've been told since, and I don't know how much I remember falsely or not, but
Yeah.
they basically pump you full of something, I believe to be something along the lines of ketamine, which basically knocks you out.
Yeah.
So I don't remember much at all. I remember
Mhm.
going on the helicopter, and what they do is they cut through your clothing to check to see if there's any other injuries. And I
Yeah.
remember getting cold, and then I remember waking up inside Camp Bastion, inside an ambulance with a light above my head. Uh, and then I was lying there, and I thought, my initial thought when I woke up was, I've died. Like that's the light that they talk about. And then two medics popped their head over, and I just started going on. No, I'm just in the back of an ambulance kind of thing. Uh,
No.
yeah, and then I went into the hospital in there, and spent the next 36 hours, I believe, and then ended
Mhm.
up flying back on the same plane as the platoon sergeant that had left. So we'd both gone back on the same plane. So then somebody else had to take over after me. So yeah, I managed to take over as platoon sergeant, go out on one patrol, get injured, and then end up back in the same flight as he was flying out the following few days. So
I
yeah.
mean, it's a bit of a record of the shortest time in post. I don't
I think
know, but
I think it was a failed appointment.
oh, so
Mm.
you fly. They get you home, and is it right? You spent a bit of time in a hospital in Birmingham. Is that where they took you?
Yeah, so all the injured soldiers go up to the Queen Elizabeth, or went up to. I don't know whether they still do these days, but went up to the QE hospital in Birmingham, where I spent, I think, the next 7 days. And
Mhm.
I got there. Obviously, my leg's still there. I had some surgeons come up to me pretty much straight away. They'd had a look at it, uh, and basically go, "We've had a look at your leg. Your ankle is smashed to pieces. We can try and fix it." That was the biggest issue. So I think there was 24 out of the 27 bones in your foot were either broken, fractured, or dislocated.
Wow.
And the heel was the one, the ankle, sorry, was the one that they'd said, it's basically smashed to pieces. We can try and put it back together, but we think you will have it fused. or you'll have to have it amputated through pain. But if you choose to have it amputated, you're booked in tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We've had 3 surgeons look at it. And so they were what they were doing, but I look at it now, is going, let's make him make the right choice. So then I'm not waking up having been knocked out with a leg missing. And then I
Yeah.
didn't have that choice. So I've made the choice to amputate. And I remember at the time saying, if I say yes to this amputation, will my insurance still pay out? And they were like, yeah. I was like, okay, then, right, we'll go with it then. Uh, and it was just, yeah, it was just that level of like, okay, I'm going to have to go with it. And I spent that night, I says, I'm not making that choice tonight. I'll make the choice in the morning. And I remember that night, the whole night, I cried. I don't know whether I slept. I can't remember properly, but I believe I spent most of the night just crying because I knew that was it. Then the leg was going to go, and in my head, life was over. So yeah, I went down the following morning and had it amputated, and then came back up and spent like the next 7 days in hospital. And initially, like I'm looking down in the bed, and where my legs should be underneath the blanket, there was a gap. Uh, and there was one nurse in particular who, whenever anybody came up, I ended up putting a pillow where my leg should be
Oh,
in the bed
wow.
so people didn't see it. And I can't remember whether I was thinking I didn't want people to see it or I didn't want people to feel uncomfortable seeing it, if that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
can't remember why that was, but eventually she came and sat with me once everybody had gone and went, "You're going home in a few days." And I was like, "Yeah." And she went, "People are going to see your leg." Uh, and I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "But you keep putting a pillow in there." And I was like, "Oh, do I?" And I don't know whether I'd subconsciously or what, but I'd put that in there. And from that day on, then I moved it out of the way, and everybody was coming in, and started the process then. And yeah, left hospital on the 21st of December, and then got home, which is quite funny because from the start of the tour, I'd always said, I really want to get home for Christmas. I got my little boy, and when you've got a bit of rank in the army, it goes to the younger lads, it goes to the lads with families, all that kind of stuff. Uh, so they were like, "You're not going home for Christmas." So in the end, I remember sitting there as I was going home on that 21st. I've been picked up to go home. I was like, "I'm going home for Christmas." I got my wish in the end. Obviously, I was missing a limb at the time, but I managed to get home for Christmas.
Kick off your 2026 triathlon season the right way. World of Triathlon Live, powered by Tridot, is coming to Excel London on the 28th and 29th of March 2026. The UK's only dedicated triathlon expo brings together everything you need to level up your swim, bike, and run in 2 inspired days. Connect with the triathlon community, hear from coaches, pros, and industry leaders, discover brands, product launches, and exclusive offers. Get extra perks and goodies with VIP access, so why not treat yourself? Tickets start at just £10, so get yours now at worldoftriathlonlive.com. I'll also be appearing at the show, so come and say hi. It's only a few weeks to go. I'll see you there. Oh, wow. I mean, you made it home for Christmas, but I mean, the way you're talking about it is so kind of, it's just one of those things that happen, but it's huge what you went through.
Mm.
And I can only imagine for your family, how it must have been, because I imagine they must have got a call saying about what had happened.
Mm.
And how did they cope with it at the time?
I can't really remember too much about it. I know I got told that, uh, I think it was my girlfriend at the time. We later got married, my children's mom, where she had basically been on the phone to me a few hours before because of the
Mhm.
time difference. And obviously, I was just going out on patrol. So then she had a knock on the door, I believe, from 2 people in
Oh.
suits. And she was just like, no, no, shut the door. And eventually opened the door, and they were basically going, he's all right, he's alive, he's just been caught in a IED, he's coming home. He's fine. His leg's in a bit of a bad way, and so on. And then I just remember, obviously, having that support around me
Mhm.
at that time. And yeah, while I was at home, I hit quite a low point, and that was it. Then I was like, my life's over. Really, that's it. I'm not going to play football anymore, and you know what I mean. A lot of this is going to be a bit of a it's going to be a bit of a nightmare. And
Yeah. And I wanted to come on to that because obviously
mm,
you get home and imagine you have Christmas and you're, recovering from major surgery and so the adrenaline's still going. But as
mm.
things started to kind of turn into the normal day-to-day routine and you start to kind of take in, I've lost a limb and my whole job has changed, my whole life is going to change.
Mm.
How did you deal with that?
I think the hardest. I look back at it now and I laugh, but this was the hardest part for me. Is I was waking up in the middle of the night, getting up and trying to stand up, and then falling because
Wow.
I wasn't used to not having the leg,
Mm,
and I remember clear as day. There was 5 different times that I fell and landed, and your natural reaction to do is when you're falling is try and put your foot down, and when
yeah.
there's no foot there, you're landing on the bottom of the stump, which has got staples in, and the pain of that was nearly as painful as it was, so
Yeah.
that was a that was quite a difficult time. But then I kind of went in and I didn't want to go out, I didn't want to see people. I was
Mm,
turning people down that were coming home on R&R. And it was only when my company commander came home on R&R and I said, no, I'm not seeing him. Uh, and Yeah, my other half at the time, she then contacted him and went, "He's saying he doesn't wanna see you," and he's like, "I'm coming. Uh, don't tell
wow.
him. Don't tell him. We'll sort it out between us." And he came in and sat down. It was only after he then came in and sat down and had that conversation with me, then I started opening up about going out the house a little bit more.
Mm,
But I had 2 months then from when I got home to when I then got to just over 2 months to Headley Court where I started the rehabilitation. So, but I had a few people come. One
mm.
of the lads who was one of the lads that we were bantering about, one of us was going to get injured. He came back and was just like, I just don't know what to say, and was
Yeah.
just really down and low about it. And I was like, I need the banter. And he was like,
Mhm.
I can't do it. I'm sorry, I just can't.
Yeah.
The other lad made up for it when he got back later on because he carried it on. But yeah, he was struggling as well, so it has an impact on everyone. And I left lads there, like I'd just taken over the platoon. I got several lads over there that I treated like my sons, and I
Mm,
called them my army son, and all of that. And they were still out there, so I know they were struggling. And I spent the next 3 months until they come back having nightmares every single night, but it wasn't about me, it was about somebody else being injured, and
right.
I can't be there to protect them, I can't be there to support them, I can't be around them. And the day they landed, the nightmares stopped, and we started moving forward, and yeah, Headley Court well and truly kicked in for the next year and a half, so.
So just about then, so for people who don't know, what is Headley Court?
So it's the rehabilitation centre where anybody that's injured in conflict or outside of conflict, but in the military, can go
Mhm.
down there and have their rehabilitation, and you learn to walk. Like in my case, I learnt to walk again. And there's a few funny stories about that as well, because from where I'm from in Birmingham, I used to walk like this. And then when I started walking like I always walked, they were like, "You're not walking right. You're walking with a limp." And I was like, "No, that's the way we walk in Birmingham." Uh, so yeah, so I ended up walking better than I ever did afterwards because they taught me to actually walk properly. Uh, but yeah, I spent quite a bit of time there, but it was the first day that I think snapped me out of my low time. As I walked in there, as you walked into the corridor, the gym's directly on your right, and I looked through the window of the gym, and there was just lads everywhere, and there was missing limbs all over the place.
Wow, okay.
Uh, and there was a lad with 2 legs missing right up towards the waist and an arm missing, and he's dragging himself across the floor in the gym. and then he's going to a rope machine and he's pulling a rope down and he drags himself back and then he's doing some shoulder press with a dumbbell. And I remember looking in there and going, I'm not too bad here, you know. This if they can do that, and I just got inspired by so many amazing humans that were down there, to the point where there's one of the most injured soldiers that in 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 the whole conflict was there, and he couldn't speak. He could move one finger, so
Wow.
he would type into a wheelchair, and he'd be sitting in a room and you'd walk in and he'd just type something that would gave you a bit of grief. So he'd just call you a name or something and just go like, yeah, it was just banter, but he couldn't
Right.
move. It was literally just one finger, but he was putting the banter through his wheelchair. And I was just sat there and I was going, mine's a scratch in comparison to a lot of
Mm.
these. And they're smiling, you know, so I couldn't help but be inspired by all them and quickly realise that life might not be over, and actually, what can I get out of life now, and can I use it
Mhm.
to my advantage, and can I push myself probably a little bit further than I ever would have if I'd have got two legs, if I'm honest. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, any amount of, if anything's going to inspire you, it's those people who have been through that type
mm,
of thing. And yeah, it's putting things into perspective, isn't it? Because what you have been through is absolutely horrific, and you know, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I guess when you
mm,
see other people who are in that even worse off spot,
mm,
it makes you think about, well, you know, I am lucky in a sense that it
yeah,
could have been a lot worse, and the fact that it didn't properly explode is
mm,
incredibly like just amazing to have
mm.
protected you. And so you went to the rehab hospital, and that obviously massively helped. But things after that took a bit of a turn, didn't it? Are you happy to talk about what happened there?
Yeah, yeah. So like, I carried on with life. I ended. I got married directly after that. That marriage ended later on. I remarried years down the line, uh, and then that marriage ended. And at that point, that was, I think, off the top of my head, 2022, summer of 2022, I think. Uh, and I hit a real low after that,
Mhm.
because I thought like everything was my fault, everything's me, I'm
Mhm.
not good enough, all this kind of stuff. Why does it always happen to me? You know what I mean? And all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I hit a low. I was drinking every single night. I was going to work, hungover in the morning, masking it, hiding it. I thought I was hiding it. And then yeah, hit a real low, and then got to a point where yeah, I made up my mind that I didn't want to be here anymore, really, and that was it. And I got to a point where I was like, I'd lost at that stage. I'd lost. I think there was three at that stage. So I'd lost my little brother to suicide. I'd lost my uncle to suicide,
Wow.
uh, and I'd lost the lad who I'm talking about that was out in Afghanistan, who I call my army son. I'd lost him to suicide, all in I think it was 2.5 years by
Wow.
this stage. And in my head, I lost my uncle when I was about 5 or 6, I think I was, to suicide. And in my head, since then, I've always gone, I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but I've always gone, that's going to be the way I go. I just had that feeling from that age, and at this point, I was like, of course, then this is it. This is where it's going to be. This is what it's going to be. And I thought, you know what, I'll be happy to go and see my brother. I'll be happy to go and see the others. And I was done, and I had enough tablets, tramadol, so a pack of tramadol, and a pack of codeine. So there's about 60 of them, and they were there in the car, ready to go. And I sat in the car for a while actually, and I just cried and cried and cried. Uh, and I got myself to the point, and I picked up the tablets, and I popped the first two out, I think it was, and I looked out the front of my car, and a robin landed on the bonnet. And I've always said that's my brother. Anytime I've seen a robin, I've gone, that's my brother. And at that stage, I was like, that's him telling me not to, if you know what I mean. So I screamed and I threw the tablets and I was just crying and screaming, and yeah, I had a bit of a moment there, and I ended up just getting out of the car, leaving everything there, and just going for a walk and put my headphones on, and I was just listening to some music and crying, walking past people crying, people trying to stop and talk to me, and I was just
Yeah.
carried on and all kinds. And yeah, I think I spent about an hour or so just walking. Uh, and in the end, I just went back to my car and I was just like, right, just go back. I was staying at a friend's house at the time, and I was like, let's just go back there, try and gather myself. And from there, I just went, right, him landing on the bonnet was a sign for me not to do it. So I
Yeah.
then started obviously going forward and trying to look at ways to pick myself up. Uh,
Yeah.
and my family were just incredible at the time. And they probably don't know how much, to be fair. But yeah, my dad, my sister, my mom, everybody back at home, my brothers, uh, yeah, were great. My kids, who in at that time when I'm sat there and I look at it back at it now and I'm going, you were so selfish. Uh,
Oh,
but I didn't even like, nothing was making sense, you know. So
no.
I was just like, everybody is going to be better off without me here. Uh, so yeah, I'd made that choice, but thankfully, it didn't happen, and yeah, I've been
Wow.
on the mend since. So
Wow. And I'm so grateful to that little robin that landed
mm,
on your bonnet,
so am I.
so that that you are still here today. And I think it's the thing with mental health, isn't it? That as you say, you look back on it and you think, how could I even have done that
Mm,
to my kids, my family, and how could I have even been in that place? But it's like you're a different person, isn't it? It's just you're out of body. You can't rationalize, you can't process things.
mm.
And had you tried any support before that to try and help you? Were you aware that you were in this spiral?
I don't think I was, to be fair, and like, I've been to
Mm.
counselling from when I lost my leg and so on, and realised I had to grieve my leg as though it was a person, and go through all this.
Mhm.
So I've been through there. I'm a big advocate of counselling and therapy. I'm not one of these men in particular that go, no, I'm
Yeah.
not getting support. I can do this myself. I'm more than happy to go gain support and learn and listen and take on as much as I can. Uh,
Mhm.
but at this stage, I was switched off. I don't think I realised. I was drinking. I was smiling on the night time. I was crying myself to sleep. I was going to work, and I was just doing that on repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, at the time I hadn't at all. But then about 6 months after that, a year after that, another friend committed suicide.
Oh
And
gosh.
it was then that I had a bit of time off work and reached out to try and get some support.
Right.
Unfortunately, when it comes down to the NHS, it didn't happen as I wanted.
Mhm.
And then I guided myself through my work, because I work in a secondary school and I support young people with their mental health and behaviour and all this kind of stuff through my own experiences. Uh, and I picked up on the 5 ways to well-being,
Right.
of like, which they're not mine, they're on the internet, everybody can use them, you know what I mean? And I was like, "How can I implement them?" I'm telling kids to implement these into their daily life because 'cause they're gonna feel better.
Yeah.
Why can't I do that, you know? And then I started doing that and started feeling better, and then set myself a goal of a boxing match, on October the 14th that year, so
Which which is amazing, because you said about this when we first spoke about you randomly signed up for a boxing match, and which I just find amazing. Where did that come from?
So a friend of mine's a boxing coach. He's a good boxer. He's a coach, and I was back up in Birmingham at the time. Because I was on the summer holidays, and I was with my family, with my dad, who basically wrapped me up when I was in my low times, and looked
Mm.
after me. And I was with him, and I was having a beer, uh, a more controlled one this time, and I saw it come up on Instagram or Facebook or something like that he wanted people to sign up for these fights. So I just messaged him as a joke and went, "I'll fight someone, mate. I don't care." And he's just like, "Yeah, whatever." And then I woke up the following morning after having a few more beers, and I was like, he's got loads of messages going, "You're signed up. You're fighting. Like training's going to be at this time, all this kind of stuff." And I was like,
Oh my
what the
goodness.
hell have I done?" Uh, and then I thought, you know what? I'll absolutely love the training, boxing training. I hate being punched in the face, but I love the training. So I thought, you know what? If anything, I'll use this training as a focus. It's 9 weeks
Yeah.
or something like that it was of training. I could only do 4 weeks up there, and then I could continue down here when I come back to work. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going to use it as that clear my mind,
Mhm.
get fit, get into that fitness world again. You know, I'd let myself go a little bit and put myself to a bit of a challenge and set that goal. So yeah, I set that goal, and we were going to be fighting on October the 14th. Yeah, I remember it being.
Wow.
And yeah,
Wow. And do you think, because you start going back to the beginning of you not liking school, but actually finding that routine in the
mm,
military. And do you think that that period of time after all you'd been through with your leg and the amputee and you losing that routine and that structure, do you think that contributed to the mental health deterioration and actually finding that routine through fitness helped?
100%, absolutely.
Mm.
Like I've got goal, and I've got another goal. I've normally got about 4 goals lined up. And when I get down to just one, I go, "Oh, I need to get some more goals set in and put on a
Right.
challenge or sign up for another race or go and do something else." So yeah, at this stage it was that and the boxing, and yeah, I went up on the 14th and I ended up winning as well in the end, which was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it did help that the lad who was fighting me dislocated his shoulder trying to punch me in the face as well, so fair play to him, he carried on fighting as well with a
Oh my.
dislocated shoulder. But I ended up, yeah, winning the fight, so it was there and then, like, I remember on that night, and I remember going into it, and I had one charity fight when I was about 20, so it was about 20 years before, because
Mhm.
this was just before my 40th birthday, I think it was. Uh And I just remember going into it saying, "I can't lose here." Like, I've been in such a hole in the past 3
Yeah.
months that if I get knocked out, I'm winning. I've got in this ring. If I win it, I'm winning, you know what I mean? And I went into it with such a clear mind of, I'm not losing here. Like, and something just felt right. Something was there, and I went in there with a level of confidence that I was gonna achieve regardless, you know, and
Yeah.
I ended up taking the win. But like I say, it did help by the fact that he dislocated his shoulder trying to punch my head off. Uh, but yeah, no, it was a great night, and then yeah, it kick-started me then looking at different goals because
Yeah.
the following day, then I went and watched a HYROX that was in the same place as where I was boxing, literally just down the road, and yeah, I'll come on to the rest in a second.
Yeah, no, and it's just one thing. It was obviously really meant to be, and though he did dislocate his shoulder, it shows the stronger athlete won in that one. So you can absolutely take that win, and I imagine it gave you that buzz, that kind of
Mm,
real achievement, and it was the start of the next chapter, wasn't it? Because as you say, the next day you went and watched a High Rocks,
I did.
and that stirred something in you, didn't
It
it?
did. To be fair, like, I was buzzing just watching. I was like, "This is amazing." The atmosphere was incredible. Everybody around is like fit as a fiddle, you know. And I was just like, "Wow!" Like, I'm well out of my depth here. So I was just kind of keeping myself, just looking around, and then I was just leaving. I was getting out of there, and it was only then that uh, I had this wheelchair chasing me down the road, and he's like, "Oi, oi!" And I'm just like, "All right." So I was carried on walking, and then, "Oi, oi!" He shouts me again. And yeah, Tyler Saunders had just competed. I just watched him actually.
Mhm.
He's got an amputation very high up on his, I think it's his left leg as well. And I just watched him doing stuff on one leg. Like, he hadn't got a prosthetic leg on. He's on crutches. He's on one leg. He was in wheelchair doing different bits and pieces. And I was just like, "Wow, this guy's incredible." And it was only when he chased me down afterwards and said, "Are you racing?" I was like, "No, no, 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 absolutely not. I'm just here watching," kind of thing. And he's like, "You need to get racing." And I was like, "Oh, I'm all right, mate. You know what I mean? I've just done my boxing match. I'm the champion and all this, giving it loads, and I had no real intention at that point that that was going to be something I was going to get into. But I left
Mhm.
there with that mindset of, wait there, he's chased me down, he's asked me to get more involved. Maybe this is something I could look at. Uh, and then spoke to a mate who was also struggling with his mental health and said,
Right.
so this was in October. I says, there's going to be a race in, I think it was end of April,
Mhm.
2023, maybe. Uh, well, I said, "Do you fancy doing doubles? We'll go and see what it's like. We can train together. We can do this.
Yeah.
We can pick each other up, and so on." So we set that, and then went and done the doubles, and I got the bug. And then I've done 15 races since. So yeah.
Which is amazing. I mean, it's you so 16 races in total, and you've done a mix of doubles and also,
Yeah.
HYROX on your own, which is no mean feat at all,
No.
and it's so inspiring, and you think about turning points and sliding doors in life, and
Mm.
that Robin was number 1,
Mm.
but also that, that seeing that boxing match advertised and then, being chased down the road saying, "Are you coming to race?" are huge parts of your life that has helped you through. And so I wanted to talk about high rocks and being an amputee athlete. Are there differences and adaptations that you have to make? How do you get through?
So yeah, so like you say, I've done a mixture of different races. I think for the first, I don't know. I think it was nearly 2 seasons or season and a half. There was no adaptive category.
Hmm.
So I was competing in the normal men's open, so I was competing against everybody else in my age group, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. So I was doing all the weights, all the distances, everything as it was. Uh,
amazing.
and then I found out that no amputee in the world had done a pro weight, so then I signed up for that one, obviously,
Of
and
course.
then went to Glasgow in 2024. I think February 2024, something like that, March 2024, and competed my one and only pro solo. No adaptions, so like all the heavyweights, so all that kind of stuff, and did really well, felt really well. Really enjoyed that, and then after that, they started bringing in, I think it was later on the following season actually, where they
Hmm.
started bringing in, the adaptive categories, where so for my category, so the below limb, uh,
Hmm.
minor is the only adaptions to the whole race. So there's 2 sled distances. So they're 25 meters instead of 50 meters, but we run the
Right.
same distances. We do everything else. And on the sled push, it's 50 kilograms lighter at the moment. I found out next season they're putting that 50 kilograms back on and pulling the distance back up to 50 meters, I think. So yeah,
Wow.
it's going to become more very similar to the Open, I believe, for next season. But yeah, so I raced in quite a few of the adaptive ones. So the first season of it, no one really knew what was going on, who was what was happening.
Hmm.
And then we found out that there were going to be the 3 fastest in that division were going to be invited to the World Championships in Chicago, which were last June. And I think it turned out that I'd qualified as the second fastest in the world at the time. The first fastest couldn't then attend, so I'd go into Chicago, and then I was suddenly getting in my head going, I could win this. Uh,
Wow.
and then if anybody's ever had jet lag, they will realise that absolutely and the thought of, wow, I'm in the World Championships 3
Yeah.
years ago. And it turned out that the World Championships happened on the 15th of June, which was the same date that I was sat in my car 3 years before, ready to take
Wow.
the tablets. So yeah, I went out there, competed, The race did not go to plan at all. I went out like an absolute lunatic. My heart rate went through the roof and I never recovered. And I think I did it about 7 minutes slower than my PB, which was quite frustrating. But I ended up finishing second. So yeah, so I
I
was
mean, still
ended up,
finished second despite all of
yeah,
that.
yeah. So I ended up finishing second in the world. So yeah, I brought my flag home from Chicago and was over the moon. And then I decided, you know what? I had a bit of a niggling injury going over there as well. And then afterwards, it was quite achy, and I was like, "Do you know what? I think I don't know whether I'm going to fully commit and continue and go
Mm,
on, and maybe I'll look at other things and so on." Uh, and then HYROX contacted me and asked me to be a ambassador for the UK this season. So I'm straight back in. And I was just like, right. And to be fair, I'd have gone back in any case. I'd miss it too much, and I want to
yeah.
be involved. So yeah, the season's well and truly under the way.
Hmm.
And I did Birmingham solo, finished third there. So
Wow.
the competition is stepping up this year for sure. And then I went to, where did I go next? I went to London next, and then won that one. And then I've recently just raced in Manchester with my beautiful other half, who 2 years prior we tried to race in Vienna, and she got injured, bless her, and ended up in a wheelchair for a long time afterwards, on crutches for ages, couldn't
Oh
walk,
my
and then
goodness.
eventually started running again in October, just gone. So it was my favourite race by a long shot, just to
Oh,
spend that time with her out there, and she was smiling and we was enjoying ourselves, and that was what it was all about. And I had a target of a time in my head that I thought she'd be happy with, and it was 1:30, and we ended up doing under 1:25. So
wow.
I think she was
Yeah.
over the moon, and there's lots more to come from her, to be fair. She's carrying another injury at the moment, which if she hears me, she'll be like, "No, there's not lots more to come just yet." But she is already asking when the next one's going to be. So
Oh, wow. I mean, it's so lovely that you can do it as I mean, kind of together as well as individually. It's lovely that you have that time together. And so, is the goal the World Championships again?
I don't. I think this year was always the goal of trying to encourage more people to get involved, not
Yeah,
necessarily the World Championships. I'm currently sat in the fourth fastest time in the world this season, I believe. There's no leaderboard out yet, so I've been keeping a close eye on it, doing my ambassador kind of
yeah.
role to try and, at least with my category, let everybody know in the category who's where and who's what. Like
Hmm.
there's some young lads out there. I'm past it now, and I'm happy to hang over that baton. But when you're sitting fourth and you know you're only a minute or two away,
Oh, yeah.
and then there's a few solo races left, like the eye's on it, but it's one of them where I'm so happy and comfortable in my life now that I'm not fully willing to make those sacrifices to go after such a dream when I'm actually happy and
Yeah.
happier running with Hannah and racing as doubles, and trying to encourage, like, if I come across somebody who's struggling with their mental health, and I can help by going, let's race together in 6 months' time. Here's a bit of a training program. Here's a bit of guidance. Here's like that. I'd rather be doing that, and
Yeah.
helping other adaptive people get into it, and helping people with their mental health get into it more and more, at the same time as enjoying it with Hannah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely. And what a UK ambassador that High Rocks have. It's incredible. It's such an inspiring story, and how you are helping others who are going through similar to what you did is just so inspiring. And as part of that, one of the things that you are setting up is a men's retreat, isn't it, that you're working on at the moment? Do you want to just talk through what that is?
yeah, so I went camping with a friend a while ago, and I always had this thought that I'd do something after I'd had my low point. I thought I need to help other people, and I
Yeah.
want to do something where I take them and maybe put them outside their comfort zone or get people to talk. Because at the time when I was going through it, everything on the TV was men talk, and get them talking. And the reality is when I'm good, I'll talk.
Of course, yeah.
When I'm bad, I don't even want to talk to my dad. I don't even want to talk
No,
to my brother. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not going to talk to someone else.
no.
So the idea was always like, well, can we get them into a position where they're feeling good about themselves? They're doing some challenges. They're putting themselves out their comfort zone a little bit. So they're feeling that sense of pride in themselves, and then open the conversation up and talk about and learn from each other and share experiences. So I went camping with a friend, as I said, in Wales, just below Snowdon, on a lake, and I took my son, who was 13 at the time, I think, and he was a bit of a hermit. He sat in his bedroom playing computer games a lot. Uh,
Mhm.
and at the end of the 3, 4 days that we was there, he'd been out on a paddleboard. He'd been jumping into the little stream next to us. He'd been doing loads of walking, all this kind
Oh.
of stuff. And he turned around at the end of it. He went, "Dad, I really enjoyed this. I needed this. Like, I needed this to pick me up." And I just
Oh.
went. At that point, I went, "This is it.
Mm,
This is where it's going to be. This is what it's gonna build from here. This is exactly what it's going to be." So then I went away from there, and I then started getting pen and paper down, and was like, right, what can I put into it? So it then came out that my dad had always said, like, what you need to do is all the podcasts he was saying are for people that are well educated, or they
mm,
are for people that can have the money to access things, or so on. So if you're ever going to do something, because I had an idea of doing a podcast back in the day, and uh, it ended up not coming about, but he was always saying it needs to be accessible to everyone. So that was the first, and I was like, right, what are the barriers going to be? And it's the money, paying to
yeah,
go on a retreat. People ain't got the money to go and do that. Uh, all different kinds of barriers, whatever it might have been. So I put it down on paper, and I was like, right, 3 days camping there. And it's going to be at that place underneath Snowdon. Day one, we're going to set up camp. We're going to meet each other. Uh, we're then going to have a fitness session, which is accessible to absolutely everybody. So if you want to go
mhm,
out there and absolutely smash yourself to pieces for 30 minutes, smash yourself to pieces for 30 minutes. If you walking around and doing press ups is going to smash yourself to pieces for 30 minutes, then walk. You know, if you've got a sprint, if you've got to walk, whatever it is, it then becomes accessible to everyone. So we then do that, and that kind of opens everybody up to talking and so on, being part of that and pushing themselves again at some out of their discomfort zone at that point. Uh, and then we go and have some food and sit down and talk on the chairs and so on. And then that evening, I set it for around about 6:30, to stop for about 8 o'clock. So about an hour and a half of just a discussion about why we're there. So I'll
mhm,
open it up, I'll tell my story, and I'll say, this is why I'm here. This is why I am doing what I'm doing. And then open the floor up. And some people want to talk. Some people don't necessarily want to talk at that point.
yeah,
But I've had so many lads just open up and tell their stories, and I'm sitting there
mm,
with tears in my eyes,
yeah,
crying. You know what I mean? So inspiring of what they've been through, and the fact that they're there, and looking for that support. So then I go, right, that we knock that on the head, and I say, everybody stop talking about what we've just been discussing. I don't want to hear nobody else talking about it tonight. Got an hour now, and then we need to get in our beds at 9 o'clock. Bearing in mind, I've set off from my house at 3 o'clock in the morning to get there for 9 o'clock in the morning, because it's about a 5.5 hour journey.
yeah,
And then we're climbing Snowdon the following morning, so we're getting up early. So I say to the lads, go to bed early, get some sleep. I'll wake you up about 5:30. Have your stuff ready. We're just going to chuck the stuff on, chuck your boots on, jump in the cars. We're going to drive up to the car park, and we're going to climb Snowdon. And the idea of shutting the conversation down there is that when they're on Snowdon, the conversations for you're on Snowdon. I think the first one took us about 4.5 hours, and the last ones took us 6 hours. So anywhere between that of going up there, because it's a leisurely walk, it's a climb, we go as as quick as the slowest man, you know what I mean? Whatever that is, we stick together. Some break off and we stop and everybody closes up, have a bit of a
Yeah.
chat and so on, and then go from there. Uh, but that opens up chances for them to start talking with each other.
Yeah.
And it changes as they go up. So they talk and go, when you mentioned that last night, I've had that experience. And then you hear it. And I was like, oh my God, this is working. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, and one of the things I implemented into it is take a moment. So it's just stop and feel. So that's one of the 5 ways to well-being is just to be present, you know.
Mhm.
So I couldn't fit that in any other way. So it was literally take a moment, and during take a moment, anybody can call take a moment at any point. And the idea is no one talks, no one moves, no one nothing. You just feel. Stop
Yeah.
what you're doing. Think about whatever you need to think about. Feel the wind in your face. Feel the emotions that are coming up. All of that kind of stuff. Uh, and that part's probably had the biggest impact, I feel, on everybody else. I still get sent videos all the time now of going, taking a moment. Had a bad day, gone to
Mhm.
take a moment. And then there's like a view and there's sat down and took a picture and send it. Uh, but yeah, that happens a lot on Snowdon because it's just stunning. Well, most of the time it's stunning, but we're
Yeah.
talking about Wales and it rains
Yeah.
normally, and we've got soaking wet quite a lot. Uh, but yeah, we get everybody to the top every single time, and then we come back down, and then we go out on the lake, do a bit of water sports as well. So we go out there and just swim in the lake and so on. It's freezing cold normally.
Of
So
course.
again, that's out of some people's comfort zone. And then that evening we talk more about the mental health and the 5 ways to well-being, and then looking at goals and targets and how they're going to take it and implement it into their life, because I can't tell them how I'm going to,
No.
because it doesn't fit. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't fit into their life, so they've got to take it away and look at that. So we have
Mm.
another chat around a campfire again that night, and then have a bit of a later night, and then we wake up in the morning. I treat them all to breakfast at the camp, and then we head off to this caverns experience, which is basically in the caves of Blaenau Ffestiniog it is. And it's not a tight, you know, where people talk about a caving experience, it's not claustrophobic, it's not tight,
Yeah.
it's not falling through. It's an open 150-foot drop cave where you're zip lining through, you're climbing around the walls and all that kind of stuff. That part is where I well and truly get out of my my comfort zone. I hate it with a passion, and I've contemplated getting rid of it after the first one, and I was like, no, if I'm expecting people to come and talk about their mental health, which is going to massively put people out there, if I'm expecting people to climb a mountain, which is massively going to put them out of their comfort zone, if
Yeah.
I'm going to expect them on that last morning to get into the freezing cold lake to do a cold dip so I can take a quick photo of us in there, then I need to do something for myself. So I've kept it in through gritted teeth. It's so expensive, mind. But we keep it in just so they can experience that, and then yeah, and then that kind of calls the end to the 3 days, and then everybody heads home from there. But yeah, like I say, everybody stays in touch over
Mm.
the group chats and so on, and I hear from other people. And what I try and do is invite somebody off the one that before back on the next one as a bit of a support. Come and
Yeah,
help me,
nice.
because then the idea for me is once this charity is up and running, if I can get 12 of these going out a year, I get to 120 to 180 men a year rather than just the 20 to 30 people that we're
Yeah,
touching. With me taking them out, I don't have the capacity personally. I work a full
of
time
course.
job. I've got a full time training program, you know, and I've got my own children. I've got my own family. So I can give those two 3 days a year. I could potentially
Mhm.
push one more, but ideally, I want to get people out there doing it for them as well. You know, so they've come through, they've had this experience, they've implemented things into their life, they're in a better place, and then I bring people back to take their own trips off. So that's the idea, really. But obviously, we need that charity because taken like I said at the start, the money away from them being there.
Yeah.
So we literally, as a charity or GoFundMe at the moment, I raise every single penny and pay for every single penny for them all to attend. So uh,
Quick.
that's the goal, is to try and make it a bigger, to reach more people.
Yeah, and it's just incredible. I think, having that process of we're going to stop the talking now, but then opening up the conversations again, and having that safe space for men to get together and talk about their feelings, which doesn't happen very often, does it? And there's not often that safe
No.
space to do that. It's just amazing what you're setting up. And so, if people were interested in the retreats, or if they were interested in helping with funding, how would they do that?
So on Instagram, at the moment, there's discomfort zone. So discomfort zone. And then 2024, that's the Instagram page. And then part of the bio, then there's a link in the bio
Right.
to go to the GoFundMe.
Okay.
At the moment, while it's that, then to obviously raise money through there to obviously send. So it costs, and they seem to have risen this year,
Cool.
as we're taking another one out in April. So we've got 14 lads going out on April the 6th to the 8th, which is fully paid for. And but yeah, I've just realised that the campsite's nearly £100 more. The caverns experience is nearly £1,000 to take the 14 of us there. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a lot of money, but obviously it's worth it for the lads. And obviously,
Absolutely.
if it helps one person off each one, then something positive's happening. But the
Absolutely.
feedback I'm getting is people are taking a lot of different things from it. Uh,
Mhm.
and like one lad in particular who I invited back when he first came on the first one. He was a lad I used to know in the army. His his other half actually contacted me because he was in such a mess. He was drinking, he was taking drugs, he was in a hole, and he came on this, and he's now sober. He changed his whole
Wow.
line of work because he was working like a, let's say, I don't, like plumber, where at the end of the day, everybody tends to go to the pub together.
Yeah.
So we changed his whole line of work. He's changed everything around, and
Wow.
he's in such a great place now. So, and she still says thank you, like,
Of
for
course.
turning it around. So it's, yeah, there's been some great success for sure.
Yeah, and it's about sharing those stories, isn't it? To try and encourage other people to come on the retreats and to start talking, and
Mm.
because you're proof that you can turn things around from when things are absolutely rock bottom. It can be turned around. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's absolutely amazing what you're doing for men out there, and yeah, I just hope that funding can keep coming in to keep
Mhm.
supporting it, because it's so essential. And Ricky, I could talk to you all evening. It's just so inspiring, your story. But I just wanted to finish. We ask everybody what advice they would give to somebody else, and I'm just thinking back. If you could give advice to yourself sitting in that car about
Mhm.
to take those tablets, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, uh, like there is always light at the end of that tunnel.
Mm,
And I wear a lot of clothes where their slogan is "There's no light without dark," and we have our dark, but the light always returns. And 3 years to the day, I was going to take my own life. I finished second in the world in a sport that I didn't even know existed.
yeah,
So it's a complete turnaround, and that's not because I'm a superhuman. That's not because I'm super fit. That's not because of anything. It's because I set a goal, and I went after it, and things fell into place, and whatever reason. But yeah, there's always light. There's
mm,
always light, and reach out and talk to people when you are good, because I know you can't when you're not.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And also stopping and looking around. Thank goodness you stopped and you looked at that robin on your bonnet, because
Mm,
that did change the outcome of that day, didn't it? So,
absolutely.
oh, Ricky, well, thank you so much for being so open and sharing your story. And we will share it on all of our socials, all the links and things to the GoFundMe, and to try and help to push those messages out. And Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, because it's so having such an impact on so many other people's lives. So you're
Mm,
proof that you can turn things around, and whilst things were very bleak for a period of time, you're now inspiring others and helping others so much. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I wish you all the best with HYROX this year, and no matter where you end up, what events you do. But yes, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Jen.